Welcome to the Football Guys Dynasty Show. It is me, the busiest geek online, Jagger May, and then with me, as always, is our Dynasty captain, Jeff Bell. And then our two guests for this week is Hutchinson Brown. You may have been noticed him the last couple of weeks over on the other channel if you're looking at our Start Sit show on Monday. And I finally started saying that correctly so I don't accidentally say sorry, Joe, in there. And then with us is our prop man, Sam Wagman over there. I know this is few and far between from bets, but you do play Dynasty with us, and we are slow traders. Me and Sam have been in deep negotiations for weeks now. We don't know if anything's going to happen. It's like a Walmart merger. Will it happen? Will it not? And we talked about, like, we had Julia and Joey on, and we drafted QBs, and then all of a sudden it's week 3, and then we have a lot of things that we need to talk about. So we're actually going to spend some time on a couple of big risers and a couple of big fallers, and we're just going to hop right into it and talk about Anthony RIchardson. Right now, I've dropped him down in my QB9. That's a big deal for me. I dropped him like 3 spots, guys. Jeff has him as QB6. Keep Shred Cut, as always, moves a lot faster and is a lot more rapid. Has him at QB10. The stats that he's put up is right now he's averaging 194 yards per game, a TD, and 2 interceptions per game. That's alarming. 39 yards on the ground. Yay. Excuse me. Yeah, 39 rushing yards on the ground, and here's like an alarming number is a 55.9 QBR. Well, guys, my analysis is this is exactly the player I thought I was getting. It's going to be boom or bust. He's going to have his bad games. Jeff, I'll let us lead you off. I'll let you lead us off. What do you think? Are people overreacting? Are they forgetting the scouting notes?
So I have a big update coming to my dynasty ranks, and I'm dropping Anthony RIchardson to quarterback 10, actually. So I've been working on
Oh,
that this weekend. I'm
I'll
almost
update that.
there. So I'll jump ahead and I'll update some other things too. So I appreciate you pulling those notes there, but that's my bad for not having those updated on the site. They will be soon. But Richardson, I think that when you're looking at him, the lack of the rush game, I think, is the biggest concern. Yeah, we kind of knew, and I think it's the Colts compensating for his lack of accuracy by really just kind of creating an offense that runs the ball and then takes shot plays downfield. And he's doing that decently, and he's, but at the same time, he had like 24 rushing yards yesterday. That's where I'm concerned about him. If we're not adding those rushing yards and we're not getting those, for lack of a better term, the tush push touchdowns, because he's not in that type of offense that Jalen Hurts is, that's able to raise that ceiling up there, then yeah, you're just a really inconsistent guy. And basically, it's almost the anti Justin Fields, where Justin Fields was doing it all with his legs and he would mix in a little bit the pass. So if you're not getting the stuff with the legs, what are you getting here? You're just not getting a lot.
I know, like, the alarming thing is definitely it's the amount of designed rushes that I think we're really missing. But I will say, like, he's on the list of players that just missed the goal line. So, like, we almost lost about 12 points there. So I think it's going to come. He's going to be a boom or bust. But as far as like the passing game and getting usage out of that, I know that he needs to be better, but apparently Michael Pittman is terrible. He always has been, apparently. He had that one good year. It was a fluke, and I fell for it. And I apologize for folks on that one. But, I mean, he's still getting targets, but when you look at his catch rate and whatnot, it's pretty abysmal. Hutch, are you concerned long term with Anthony Richardson? Because I know there are some that are panic selling for the short term.
I wouldn't be concerned short term. I think this year and likely next year, he's going to be the starting quarterback no matter what, because the Colts probably won't be in a situation where they can pick that high and get a quarterback. And also, this is basically Richardson's rookie year, essentially, because he missed so much time last year with injury. They're going to give him shots. He was the 4th overall pick. But his passing and the lack of growth is incredibly concerning. And when you look at his completion rates in certain areas of the field, it's disastrous. He can throw downfield. He's got a cannon of an arm. But when you look at passes that went 0 to 10 yards, he's bottom 3 in the NFL in completion percentage there. When you look at passes that travel 10 to 19 yards, he's bottom 6 in the NFL in completion rate there with 42.1%. Like, it's incredibly bad. And when you watch it on film, he just misses all the easy throws. He just misses these guys on a consistent basis, and it's not good because we want to talk about, oh, he's going to get those goal line touches, he's going to get those rushing touchdowns. He's not going to get them if he doesn't get this team in the red zone because he's consistently missing these throws, and it's resulting in third and longs and missed third down plays and missed conversions, and as a result, punts and field goals. And it's just not working for this Colts offense right now. And like you and Jagger, Jeff, you and Jagger have mentioned, the rushing is not there. 39 yards per game. That's not going to, because we expected for him to be like a top 3 rusher in the NFL at quarterback. Right now, he's like 6th or 7th in yards. That's just not going to give us what we want for fantasy. So yeah, the passing isn't there and the rushing isn't there like we wanted. So Richardson, I think short term he'll be okay. He's going to have some boom games because he can throw it downfield. But the lack of growth in the passing game is incredibly concerning because this is the exact Anthony Richardson we saw in college, the exact Anthony Richardson we saw early in this first season, and the exact Anthony Richardson we saw in preseason. And it's the Richardson we're seeing now. And that lack of growth is extremely concerning for his long-term value in Dynasty.
Sam, where are you at?
I'm on a little bit of the same page. I think right now is actually a good buy low spot for Richardson. He's got a nice, easy portion of the schedule coming up in the next month or so with the Jaguars, Titans, Dolphins, and Texans, who can definitely be thrown on to some degree. But yeah, I think it's a little bit concerning. The good things are really good. He has the most money throws in the NFL, 10 deep ball attempts. So he's obviously throwing the ball deep, and he's 5th in fantasy points per drop back. So those are the good things. But the bad things is that he does almost as many things bad as he does good. We saw that really kind of pitiful weak interception in the red zone, where he basically threw a nice little slipping, fluttering ball into a defender's hands. 30% deep ball completion percentage, which for a guy who's making his living on the deep shots, it's kind of concerning. He's 20th in the NFL in that, and he puts the ball in danger a lot. 6 danger plays, which ranks 3rd in the NFL. So I think there's a lot of concerning things here. Like Hutch said, I think at this point in his career, there's room to iron things out, but I think we should definitely be concerned a year and a half, 2 years down the road that if the Colts start losing, which is definitely something that's in the conversation, I think that could be a real big red flag for his dynasty potential if he doesn't start to really just take better care of the ball.
Yeah, totally. And especially, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jagger.
Go ahead, Hutch.
I was going to say, you mentioned losing games. Their defense right now is not playing that well. We expected their defense to be a lot better. Right now, they're not playing that good. If Anthony Richardson's not able to move the ball in offense and their defense is not playing well and they're out there and they're tired a lot, they're going to start losing some serious games. And that's going to lead to the Colts being higher in draft pick. And then that's going to lead to a conversation in the next year or two of like, okay, like, do we need to do something here? Like, that could be a realistic conversation after next season.
I know for me, I'm more worried about, I guess, the Trey Lance kind of scenario on here, but he's even had more experience than Trey Lance. But I think that we really underestimate, because like Hutch, you say lack of growth. Preseason barely like counts as real, those are reps and they do count.
Yeah.
But like he's barely played in college. And again, like I'm on the side where I guess my biggest mistake in my analysis was more of the short-term value, where like outside of Superflex, it's massive risk, and you really are like it's almost a coin flip from week to week, and that's hard to rely on, and it's hard to anticipate. But in long term, I really see what he did with someone like Jalen Hurts, and I think him and Jalen Hurts have some of the same intangible qualities, and that's not me so much chasing a narrative, but those narratives do matter to an extent. And this is as ugly as we all thought. We just saw flashes earlier, and we thought that was gospel and not so much flashes. Jeff, you got anything else?
Talk about Jalen Hurts and that relationship there with Shane Steichen. When did Jalen Hurts really take off? It was when AJ Brown arrived, and that was obviously they had Devonta Smith there, and now they've got Saquon Barkley there, and yes, they have Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, but I don't know that for what Michael Pittman can do well, that really fits what you want to do with Anthony Richardson anyways. And so that's a concern, and some of that's scheme working there. And they do have Adonai Mitchell. Maybe he gets up to speed, and we're seeing good production out of Alec Pierce, but I think that we see so often, and when you look at yesterday with Malik Willis yesterday going for 200 plus passing yards and 70 rushing yards in that Green Bay system, how much it matters the players that are around quarterbacks. And you look at Sam Darnold looking like a competent quarterback now that he's got Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones. Meanwhile, you can go to the other end and players that we like that just aren't doing it. And so that's where I think my biggest concern is, do you have the pieces around him, and are you able to put the pieces around him, or do they think that given the contract situation that Michael Pittman's good enough for him to be the primary target for Anthony Richardson? And I just don't know that that's the player that you want in that position.
That's you hit the nail on the head, and I kind of alluded to that in the beginning, where I think Michael Pittman being the focal point of the offense is where the crux of the mistake is.
Mhm.
Like AD Mitchell might need some time, and I don't even think they know how they want to use him. And now you think that where Chris Ballard and now where Shane Steichen is, where they're like, we just paid him a 3-year contract, is essentially like these basketball terms, like a max contract. And now we have to throw him out there and we need to use him. Like I got to answer to this crazy cokehead, Jim Irsay up there. I don't want him to yell at me. Like I don't want him to give more money to a whale. I need this for my team. So you're going to try to, recoup on your investment. And I think that could be huge. And I think that they will eventually eat the contract and, treat it like a Kenny Golladay situation. Cause this is what this feels like, Jeff, is Kenny Golladay like they're not the same player, but you think a player that we knew had issues, he has that 1 year, and then we're like, hey, there's these issues, and then we buy into it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't go away from that process, but like I definitely will. I would say I would have been a little bit less aggressive on Michael Pittman, particularly in Dynasty, how I was to get him, and buying him. But I do think that, the whole follow the money took a huge L if we look across the league. Like think of DeAndre Swift, Michael Pittman, and all that. It's pretty bad. Before we go to our next riser and someone that Jeff just brought up, we got to pay some bills. If you like all this content, if you like me, if you like Jeff, hit that like and subscribe button. We have 3 shows for you for a week. And if you're on the go and you're not in front of YouTube or whatever, we're on every audio spot on the planet, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There really helps us out if you leave us those reviews. We also have a trade show. If you have any questions, anything like that, I'll go over there and pull those as well. But make sure to give us 5 stars because we run purely on compliments. Also, we are a website and we offer tons of content from these lovely gentlemen like myself and Sam, who does prop bets, and Hutch. Go over to Football Guys /plans. We have stuff called the GOAT tier. I know, Hutch, you've been over there as well, where we literally sit there and we're forced to give you advice because we want you to win. Anyway, I'm done with that spiel, and now we're going to go back to the goods, and we're going to talk about Sam Darnold, someone
Force is
now
strong,
who,
Jim.
yeah. Well, I want him to know that we care, Hutch. Like,
Yes,
we're here to sell a product, Hutch. We're here to sell a product.
Yes, sir.
Sam Darnold. I know a lot of people think this isn't real. Me and Jeff have been telling you that this was probably going to happen for a long time now, since he's been signed. We've told you that a lot of people like these teams. I know Bill Belichick was just on one of the various shows that he actually talks now. He's very social, but he was just saying that basically everyone has loved Sam Darnold but the Jets. And by the Jets, you mean Adam Gase. And if you look at the Jets and you think, wow, that is a rail run organization, especially prior to when they brought in Bob Saleh, maybe we have a lot more to teach you. But Sam Darnold, right now, he's averaging 219 yards per game, 2.7 TDs a game. That's pretty big. Granted, this is a 3-game sample size, and he just had a 4 TD game. The real huge number is really the interception. He's only averaging 0.7. That's pretty good. As someone that we've known to be a turnover machine. Rushing, let's just pretend that doesn't happen. But he has a 117.3 quarterback rating. I think that he's this year's Geno Smith. It's always been there because when we talked about the Jets, let's fast forward to the Panthers. Do you think that they've been well run in the last 10 years? That answer is probably no. So Sam, we'll start with you here. Where are you at with Sam Darnold long term in Dynasty? Do you think he's earned another contract somewhere, or do you think this is a flash in the pan because it's KOC and this isn't something we can trust?
So I think it's too early to make that. I think it's too early to make that determination, at least for, where Sam Darnold goes in the future. I think we've all, fallen victim to, basically overreacting on something that hasn't happened before, but all of a sudden it happens and we kind of freak out and assign a value to something when, it's probably not ready to be assigned a value to yet. And I definitely think that could be going on here with this Vikings team. It's clearly the system to me. It's hard for me to erase what I've seen from Sam Darnold across his career, play calling or not. But you combine a former coach of the year with a very, very elite defensive mind in Brian Flores, who probably has the best defense in the NFL right now, and the terrific game script that the Vikings defense continues to put him in, which is the literally league's best defense, plus 8.07 game script points, which is literally the best number in the NFL, and it's not particularly close. So this defense that continues to put Sam Darnold in situations where he doesn't have to be the hero is definitely a complete reset from where he was in New York. But it's also going to be likely different from where he is next year, because we all know he's not staying here longer than this year because JJ McCarthy is the quarterback of the future here. Most likely. I see that look, Jeff. I see that look. But
I was going to say, I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure.
Will he stay in Minnesota? I mean, it's difficult to think. I guess if he impresses the coaching staff enough, he could stay there longer. But I would think that he wants to get a starting contract somewhere next year. And I think he pushes his way into free agency to try and get a starting contract somewhere else. I think there's plenty of spots that'll be open after this season that are looking for, a 1-year bridge rental at the quarterback position, which is just what this is. Sam Darnold is kind of just that guy at this point. So
Yeah.
from that, I have him, inside my top 30 quarterbacks, but I'm kind of hesitant to put him any higher than that because, I acknowledge that he's doing really well. The deep ball completion percentage is really good. First in the NFL, second in red zone completion percentage, both really, really important for fantasy points scoring. But I also have to acknowledge, where does he go from here? And, will he be as successful in his next stop if he does decide to leave the Vikings organization in 2025?
That makes sense. Right now, I
Yeah.
still have him as QB 32. The couple of guys I had to have ahead of him is Michael Penix, Bo Nix. As much as I don't like the Broncos, I know that there's something there with Bo Nix. I don't think Bo Nix sucks as bad as the stats may seem. I think Sean Payton might suck more. So like I'd be willing to stick it out a little bit more. And that's kind of the only thing keeping him down. I think he's a buy. Jeff, you have him at 26 now, which I know you just bumped him up a little bit. Hutch, where are you at? Are you on the pessimistic side or I would say like Sam is a pessimistic. He's just has a cautious optimism, or do you think that this is real like I do? Like I've been a believer for a while.
I'm with Sam as to be cautiously optimistic with Sam Darnold. He has looked impressive in the first few games. He's leading the league in passing touchdowns. And look, you can say he has Justin Jefferson, but other than that, he has nobody else really. It's other than Jay Jettas, no other receiver on this team
Jalen
has.
Naylor is nobody? Wow.
Well, I mean, other than Jay Jettas, no other receiver on this team has 36 yards per game or more. Like it's been Justin Jefferson dominating, and Sam Darnold has figured it out from there. I mean, we have Addison hurt, we have Hawkinson hurt, and he has looked fantastic. But the thing is, I feel like this is a sell high moment because I don't see where it goes up from here. I have a hard time finding places where it goes super, super higher from here. He's had a legit on fire start, and he is going way up in the fantasy football world. And what if after a few games, teams start to see where, okay, we can see what the Vikings are doing. We see what they're doing. Let's scheme Justin Jefferson out. Let's put more pressure on Sam Darnold, because under pressure this year, Sam Darnold is outside the top 24 in completion percentage. He's taken 8 sacks, and he's outside the top 30 in yards per attempt. When you look at quarterbacks under pressure, he has been quite ineffective. And also, like Sam mentioned, Jayden McCarthy is likely to be the starter next year. They drafted this kid 11th overall when they had Sam Darnold on the bench. Like they knew Sam Darnold was there and they drafted Jayden McCarthy anyway. He's probably going to be the starter. They're going to give him a chance next year, which means Sam Darnold will probably move on to a team that is likely in a worse scenario, given the fact that they want to give a quarterback a 1-year rental deal. Like, I have a hard time buying in fully to Sam Darnold. I'm cautiously optimistic. If you get a fun offer, a really good offer in Dynasty, I'd be willing to make the move and get him out of my team.
Jeff, I'll let you say the thing that I think you're thinking as well first, and then I'll back you up.
How long did Jordan Love sit in Green Bay?
Thank you.
3 seasons?
Yeah, for a couple years. Yeah, for a couple years. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if Sam Darnold stacks up 14 more games, and this is a massive if Sam Darnold stacks up 14 more games like these 3 games or anywhere near this, you're not letting that walk out of your building, and you are making sure that you lock that up, and it's probably, you might start at like a 2 or 3 year bridge contract, and the beauty of JJ McCarthy, 1, you knew that he was going to be a raw prospect. 2, you have a completely lost year this year of development. 3, that rookie contract that he's sitting on, yeah, he's a top 10 pick, and that money's a little bit different than what Jordan Love was, but you're still cost controlled. You're still locked in on that cost on that. And you look at, I mean, what are the Falcons doing? The Falcons are paying Kirk Cousins top of the market as a free agent, and they also drafted Michael Penix with a top 10 pick. And so I think that there's been models around the league of what you would do here in this situation. You simply don't, if Sam Darnold does this for another 14 games, you don't let that leave. And you don't let that leave to play a rookie that missed his entire season that you knew was going to be a raw prospect coming in, a raw project. And I think that you bridge Sam Darnold, you give him a 2 or 3 year deal that you can kind of get out of if kind of the S hits the fan, and then you look at that situation, you would reevaluate after a year or 2. And maybe it is a situation where Sam Darnold is just our guy. He's 27 years old. He was going to be the number 1 pick in his draft class. He was supposed to be the prince who was promised when he came along. And now he's finally getting a positive situation for the first time in his career, and he's running with it. And that's the biggest thing. This isn't an out of nowhere 7th round pick that is just having a couple good games. This is a guy that was a blue chip prospect that has ironed out some of the issues in his career that kind of derailed that early career. And he's still youngish. He's still 27. He's younger than Josh Allen and some of these other guys, younger than Baker Mayfield. And so that's where I think that, given what you've gotten so far, yeah, I think he's, right now, in my mind, he's the Vikings starting quarterback of the future. And we don't know how long that future would be, but I don't see this being, if he's playing like this, he's not just going to walk to another team. And if he does walk to another team, he's going to get a massive deal in free agency. And so that's where there's a lot more insulation, I think, in his value in Dynasty than maybe we have kind of put our mind to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Judge. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with you on that point, that if he continues to play this well, that he will likely be the starting quarterback for the Vikings next year. I would bet against him keeping up these numbers personally.
Why?
I mean, personally, the first thing, I think that, again, the numbers I brought up under pressure, Sam Darnold has been incredibly weak under pressure. And also, when you look at, it's 3 games. Like, it's 3 games. Defenses have not seen Sam Darnold start for a little bit. And now it's all like, holy crap, he's starting on fire. Let's figure out how to stop him. I think they're going to figure out a way to limit him at least a little bit.
Yep,
I think defenses are going to figure out the Vikings offense a little bit. It's been just 3 weeks. But I love your point, Jeff, that if he continues to play this way or continues near this way, he will like that model is a really good point.
This offense made Nick Mullins look pretty good last year. I'm just saying. So I think that Sam Darnold's got a little more going on than Nick Mullins. But
yeah, and there goes the air out of mine and Hutch's argument.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, guys. Is like, you really, like, you need to be able to process well, and you need to be able to make throws on time in the system. And that's like, I'm gonna take off my show host hat on, and I'm gonna turn into the grubby little film grinder that I'm actually am. And then here's one thing that I've noticed just from college now, even in the last 2 seasons with NIL, and I think now what we're seeing with like Michael Penix, especially with Jordan Love, and even going all the way back to Aaron Rodgers, is that the NFL chased outliers. They saw Jalen Hurts, they saw Josh Allen, and you want to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes sat a year. He didn't go out right away.
Yes.
And like, we chased these outliers. So us as fantasy analysts thought, you know what? let's just go get, they got draft capital, they're studs. Let's just ignore all this data that says they need lots of time because they have to learn lots. And this is me putting a little bit of panic alarm on Anthony Richardson, or just saying that it's only going to get uglier before it gets better. Because going back to my point on college, you look at Cam Ward, you look at Quinn Ewers. Now, a lot of these quarterbacks, since they're getting paid in college, they don't feel the need to go to the NFL. All of a sudden, when they have experience and they're more mature in year 4, or even some cases year 5, you get a much more polished quarterback who's seen multiple defenses. Some of these guys have worked in 3 different systems, and then you have someone who's ready to go out there. If you think about Sam Darnold, what mold does he fit in? People forget when Sam Darnold was drafted, he was the youngest number 1 overall pick of all time. Incredibly young. That's why people think he's old now. He's still only 27 years old. So now you have a quarterback who has natural arm talent, who has played in, I think, 4 different systems at this point, and 3 systems have said that they have liked him. They just had various other reasons why. And that's where I'm at. I'm not trying to get like a huge football nerd in there. And then Hutch, I understand what you're saying under pressure. But it's also like, who was he playing under pressure is always like a big thing for me as well. And I'm also going in a pro and looking up stats right now. But in the meantime, we're going to go to our next faller. And I know I got 2.
And I will
Really quick, I just want to say that I
Yeah.
love your point about players playing longer. And now that players can be paid in college, Trey Lance should be allowed to go back to college. And Trey Lance
Yes, he
should
should.
be allowed to go back to college
Yeah.
and play for
Oh,
he had 3 more
gosh,
years
yeah.
of
Should get
eligibility.
those eligibility
But there's
left,
no reason why.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
we've got Cam Rising is in like year 13 in college. Like, why can't Trey Lance just go play for Oklahoma for a couple of years?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's clear, like Tom Brady he sounded like the old man shouting, into the street, but he's correct.
He's
that
right. Yeah.
It started in high school, where we're just putting athletes in the position to just be athletes, and they're not learning how to play football. They're not learning how to have schemes. Like Dylan Raiola, we're all going to look at him and like, well, if you don't spark as a freshman, you're garbage. It's like, no, again, this is just like an outlier player. This, like, Dylan Raiola is like, as far as me now, where I'm at in my, like, quote unquote scouting career, I've never scouted a prospect as good as Dylan Raiola this young. You don't see those all the time. So I definitely think with quarterbacks, we need to start being patient. And as fantasy people, we need to kind of stop being so against players failing at the gate as rookies. And I'm looking at where Sam, you're right, Hutch. He's got pretty terrible EPA per dropback against. I can't believe I missed that stat. Anyway, I'm not checking your homework or anything like that. I'm just.
No,
It is very odd. Sorry, go ahead, Hutch.
All right. I was gonna add one also thing about Sam Darnold. I want to remember. I think we did see this hot start for Sam Darnold a little bit in Carolina. Those first 2 games that he was able to start for Carolina, it was him and DJ Moore that were on fire. Sam Darnold rushed for a couple touchdowns too, and he was on fire for fantasy. He lit the world on fire, and then it fell apart really quickly. But I just want to bring that. But Sam, go ahead.
I was about to say.
I will say.
I had Sam Darnold then. I remember that year. Go ahead, Sam.
I keep coming back to how spoiled we've been over the past few years. Wide receivers breaking out in their first year in the NFL. Quarterbacks having great seasons right off the bat. Even last year, tight ends. Sam Laporta comes to mind, having extremely good rookie seasons. We've been spoiled. It was 3-4 years ago that breakouts weren't common right away. 2, 3, 4 years for some of these players to really kind of come into their own, in the NFL as they get used to such a faster game. And I know we're getting so many more just gifted natural athletes and, gifted players coming in, but a lot of those guys are still outliers. And I think that goes back to Jagger's point about us and the NFL kind of chasing those outliers and not really accepting that those are the 1-2%, and the rest of the 98-99% of these players that are coming into the NFL, they might need a little bit of seasoning, might need a little bit of time. So I definitely think that's something we can take a step back and kind of appreciate the macro look of things instead of just looking, at just that micro, view for, just a little bit and see, what could this player possibly turn into instead of what is he right now.
Makes sense, and that's enough on Sam Darnold. That was
Thank
actually
God.
it was great. It was great conversation. Though, I'm not mad about it. But again, we talked about these outliers, and that brings up Jalen Hurts here. Right now, he's my QB6. He's still kind of in the same tier. I would just take some other guys ahead of him right now. That's not like a big drop. Jeff's
Yeah, fair enough.
QB4. Keep trade cut. He's still QB5. He's averaging 257 yards per game, 1 TD per game, 1.3 interceptions, 47 yards on the ground, and he has a QB rating of 85.9. Those are modest numbers. For fantasy,
Yeah.
those are good and consistent numbers. But I think the NFL perception is starting to leak into our fantasy perception. And more of this is another point I wanted to make with Sam Darnold that didn't get brought up. And this could be said through a lot of these quarterbacks. Every year we underestimate how bad the QB situation is. Like we joked about it, like we said on the show, we're like QB's actually deep. And then, September rolls around, and then where are we at with that guy in our face? I'm gonna go back to you first again, Sam. You had some points about Jalen Hurts, so I'm gonna let you get those out.
So I first want to say I do like the way he's settling into Kellen Moore's new scheme. I think he's taken to throwing over the field a little bit more liberally than he has in the past, which was definitely something missing. If you studied this Eagles offense, the outsides of the field were exclusively populated by Jalen Hurts throwing, and the middle of the field was just bare. There was none of that in Brian Johnson's system. There wasn't that much of it in Steichen's system before, because it's just not something that was used. But Kellen Moore's system is a lot more freewheeling and, emphasizes the slot a lot more. We obviously remember what he did with CeeDee Lamb in Dallas before he went to the Chargers. And then obviously with Keenan Allen there, we saw, a huge renaissance from him in 2023 as well. We started to see that with Devontae Smith in 2024. But getting back to Hurts, I really like the way he's kind of taken to being more comfortable in throwing over the middle of the field. Unfortunately, it started to ramp up his hero ball mentality for me. And that's been something that's been on my mind for him. He's kind of, been freelancing without abandon so far in 2024, and it's cost the Eagles. He has 7 danger plays, which ranks first in the NFL this season. He's thrown multiple picks right now, and I'm just not sure if that's good for his long-term development as a quarterback, because I do think that he's getting hurt by, his ability to move around the pocket and just take too many liberties. And he's not really taking some of the more easier throws that are showing up. I know AJ Brown hasn't been there the past couple of weeks. I know Devontae Smith just got hurt and is likely to miss a game or more, judging by the fact that he was basically knocked out. That could be interesting to see how the Eagles kind of scheme around their 2 best pass catchers being out. But I'm worried for Jalen Hurts long term, because some of the characteristics that we saw from earlier in his career, where his poor decision making showed up on tape again and again and again, are starting to come back in this system. And while he's been consistent with, high completion percentage, that is above 75%, it's his misses are downfield and they're picks, and that could be really bad. So his taking care of the football has always been a thing for me. And the fact that it's starting to show up again is not great for his dynasty. He's still my QB4 strictly because he's locked in, as the starter. But if Nick Sirianni gets fired and this team starts to go through a reboot again, Hurts could be left out in the street in a little bit, in a couple of years.
I mean,
Yeah,
whoever's
honestly,
going to
Sam.
get that team is getting the keys to a castle. Hutch, I was going to you anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, look, I couldn't agree with Sam more here. A lot of the things that he was saying are things I wrote down here to talk about. The hero ball playing, the decision making was incredibly poor last year. Towards the end of the season, we saw those specifically from week 13 in that San Francisco game on. It was just a disaster. Hurts made horrible decisions. He threw a lot of interceptions. He was messy with the football. He just didn't take care of the football the way he should, because he made so many risky plays. And it's happening again this year, even with the new OC, even with a refresh. It seems like that's what's happening right now. And Jalen Hurts, one thing I will say though, his fantasy points per game right now are not too high. He's, borderline top 8 player right now, but I wouldn't be too concerned. Saquon Barkley has scored 5 touchdowns in the first 3 games. That's probably not going to continue. We're probably going to see some more rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts, some more opportunities to get in the end zone for Hurts. For fantasy, I'm not worried at all for at least this season, but the hero ball, the decision making is quite concerning. Like Sam, like you said, he's got to clean it up.
Jeff, where are you at with the Eagles passing game as a whole? Do you think it's going to be fine, or is this more of like they may not be championship worthy, but they're not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater?
I mean, I think they're championship worthy. I don't know. AJ Brown's been out of the lineup, and I have watch the Dolphins offense with Skylar Thompson, or watch the Titans offense or the Raiders offense. There is not a concern that I have at all that Jalen Hurts is going anywhere as a starting NFL quarterback, as an impactful fantasy player. And I mean, I get where you guys are at. You're, as Eagles fans, you're disappointed with how last year went. You're a little bit frustrated there, and the things that you bring up, sure, I hear you, but like, you guys remember, like, Ty Detmer was your quarterback, or like Rodney Pete, like, Jalen Hurts is
We're
pretty good
too young
quarterback.
for that. We're too young for that, dude.
Okay, I'm just saying.
That's what-
Before Donovan McNabb, it was pretty brutal there for a stretch. So yeah, you guys have enjoyed the McNabbness, and then a little bit of Carson Wentz, and then obviously Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl. But Jalen Hurts, I have any real concerns.
I mean, look how quick we were to throw out Carson Wentz. Like, we tossed him away.
That was valid, though. That was valid
because you had Jalen Hurts.
It was valid.
Like, if you
it was
find the
definitely
next
valid,
Jalen Hurts,
but
sure. But you didn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, who's your back? Kenny Pickett? Kenny Pickett's going to throw Jayden Hurts out.
Yeah.
See,
Well, I mean,
I think it's hilarious between Cowboys and Eagles fans, because with your quarterbacks, you guys are the Spider-Man meme. You're like, he ain't it, and I'm like, okay, so you guys, like, what else do you want here? Do you want Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, no.
See, like, I lived with.
We're
through
being
20
greedy.
years
We're
of
getting greedy,
JP
but-
Losman and everything else as a Bills
We are getting
quarterback. So,
greedy.
like, I'm protecting Josh Allen like my little baby, and it's like, because I know how bad it is if you don't have a Josh Allen or even a Jalen Hurts. Jag is
Yeah, but I
learning,
think-
and hopefully
yeah, I
Jag
think-
doesn't have to learn long, and it's Drake May, but Jag's learning after enjoying Tom
Yeah.
Brady for 20 years.
It's
Yeah.
hard out
I
here.
think the
Like I
thing-
said,
Oh,
I had hope in Mac Jones for 3 years, guys.
I know,
Have you
Trent
wasted your
Edwards.
life on someone for 3 years?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Like, I let Mac Jones affect my day way too many days.
Yeah.
Hutch, go ahead.
yeah. I think as Eagles fans, we're getting a little greedy because we saw what it could be in that Super Bowl run year. Like, the hero ball plays, the deep ball plays, they were working. Like the Jalen Hurts was chugging the ball downfield a lot, and it was working. There were very few turnover worthy plays. It wasn't as messy. But since that Week 13 San Fran game, it has gotten unbelievably messy, and there's just been so many of those plays where you're just like, what on earth is Jalen Hurts doing? But overall, I mean, when you look at the raw, like, just basic number, I mean, he 8th in completion percentage right now, 4th in passing yardage on the 8th most attempts, and he's 3rd in QB rushing yards. So he's putting up numbers, he's putting up points, and the Eagles offense is putting up some decent points. I know last week against New Orleans was disastrous, but this offense generally is moving. It's happening with a lot of mistakes at the same time. And that's
Yeah.
why
I
I'm
think-
concerned.
You
I
almost
think
won the
it's
Super Bowl
important-
like 18 months ago, and after 8 bad games, you're ready to toss him out. Come on, guys.
I think
I'm
I
not
think
ready
it's
to toss him
important
out
to
yet.
allude-
I am fully fine with Jalen Hurts as my quarterback. I'm totally cool with it. It's just, it's not fun to watch. It's really
Yeah,
not
I
fun
think
to
it's
watch.
important
him
to
play
view this
football
through
right
I'm
the
telling you,
lens.
go watch Skylar Thompson, and it's a lot of fun to watch Jalen Hurts.
I think it's
Yeah,
important to view
yeah.
this through the lens of like where we are as fans as well, because
Mhm.
I think for
Yes.
fantasy he's completely fine. Like I said, he's adjusting fine to Kellen
Yeah,
Moore's
totally.
offense. Like this thing is night and day from what we saw from Brian Johnson's offense last year. That was horrible.
Mhm.
It was awful to watch. Like, we watched Hurts regress as a passer, as a quarterback, I think as a leader as well. And I think it was fair to wonder what kind of Hurts that we would see coming into the season. So from that standpoint, I think I'm glad that we're getting the Hurts that we're getting, but I would like to see, less liberties. I don't know. Am I being too greedy seeing less liberties taken? Take some of the easy plays and not go for the 60-yard, deep shot like Anthony Richardson every single drive when you don't have to?
You know where I'm at is from a film perspective. Like, I mean, they've been primetime almost every week. is that I think he tries to like prove that he's a quarterback too often, and maybe
Yes.
it might not be that. Just run the ball, man. Like sometimes I'm just like you already could have gotten 5 yards, and then it's just a throwaway. And I think maybe he needs to find the balance. Maybe someone needs to yell at him. It's like you're
Yeah.
the dude who's squatting 600 pounds, man. Like it's okay to tuck it and run
Exactly.
a little bit more often. And I think that's what's causing the hero ball. If it's not there, just go run, man. Like it's okay when fast guys go out and be fast, you know.
Or throw the
Just
ball
don't.
away.
Yeah, or well, that's what. Actually, that's
You
what
can
I'm
let it be another
saying.
play.
Is like he's so ready to throw the ball away, he could have just gotten 5 yards instead of an incompletion. Is what I'm saying. It's just
Yeah.
like it's right
Yeah.
there, man. Just go and do it, and he doesn't do that sometimes. And to me, just knowing who he is as a player, you know, to play sports psychologist is like, yeah, bro, we know you're a good quarterback. Now just go be an athletic one too. You know, just go do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
You know.
Like
So
you're so gifted running the football. Please just run the football.
yeah, from what I've seen with
Yeah.
the last couple of games, that number 47.7, that should be about 60 yards per game
Mhm.
if he would
It
just
should.
It should
go
be.
and tuck
Mhm.
the ball a little
Because
bit
he's
more
looked a
often.
lot quicker. You know, a lot of people were worried after the Green Bay game. He looked really slow in that game, but we've seen the speed on film dramatically pick up. He
100%.
looks completely fine speed wise. So, but that's my spiel on Jalen Hurts. I know it's doom and gloom,
Mm.
but and I know I'm being greedy. I'm sorry,
Basically,
Jeff.
Jalen Hurts is fine, guys. I only put him on the sheet because the folks that are on Twitter that listen to this show, stop listening to Twitter. This is the one time I would tell
Yeah.
you
Stop listening to Twitter.
I was like Twitter is upset Eagles fans and people who were disappointed last year, and they're like, why won't God blow up the sun and let Jalen Hurts score 30 points every week? You know, that's what it feels like. It's like,
Yeah,
shut
no,
up.
it's-
Just at
He's
me, Jagger.
perfect. Yeah, he's perfectly fine. The the next one that we want to talk about, Justin Fields is a riser. And boy, am I
Mhm.
happy because them bags were heavy, folks. And to think about it, Justin Fields has been a better real life quarterback than he has been a fantasy quarterback. And a lot of people were like, yeah, it's still only this many points. Yeah, they've had tough matchups and grinded out games, and points have been taken off the board as well. And I'm not trying to count things that don't count, but I'm kind of counting things that didn't get counted. Like I see it on tape, an actual real life quarterback, and not even just like Chase Daniel on YouTube saying, "Hey, Justin Fields is pretty good." If all these things happen, it's actually that he's good in real life. So I have him as quarterback 22. Jeff has QB 21. That is back. He was dead, folks. So Jeff, we'll go back to you here. 172 yards per game is nothing to run home about. The real issue is 0.7 TDs a game. I think that's going to come up. I think he's going to run the ball again a little bit more often because he's only getting 30 yards per game. And he has a 95.3 QB rating, which is one of the best in his careers. Like, we're back, right? Do you think Russell Wilson's going to get the job back or what?
No, you're going to have to fall off really hard, I think,
Really hard.
for Russell Wilson to get the job back. I think it's going to be the type of situation where basically you need to pull Justin Fields mid-game and put Russell Wilson in because it's that bad to get Russell Wilson back in there. As long as you're winning, you're going to keep rolling with Fields. And that's the biggest thing I think that people need to understand. And like, it's kind of almost like, think about Brock Purdy there, where like Brock Purdy was just winning games to start, or like Tom Brady was just winning games to start. And once you start to win games, then you can really start to figure things out. Your confidence swells and you grow into the role. And you look at the skill set with Fields, and I mean, I definitely have my concerns with Arthur Smith as the offense coordinator, but I see Fields' skill set that is going to translate to fantasy points. They're going to be there. That will happen. And like Jag, like you mentioned, a couple have been called back because of penalties. Calvin Austin broke out a little bit yesterday, and we saw that big play from him and that big touchdown. And maybe adding Calvin Austin into this offense, and then adding maybe Roman Wilson into this offense and replacing Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller and those guys with some of these guys that can make some big plays downfield. Then all of a sudden you've got some big plays added in. You get the ball into your creator's hands, and that passing yardage number will go up a little bit. And so then the rushing will open up a little bit as defenses are a little bit more concerned about your passing options there. And so it's all just going to build and snowballing, and you're seeing the wins. That's the biggest thing, that Justin Fields is on the field and he's having success. And that's the major key. And that will lead into fantasy points. And he's still a great buy opportunity if somebody still thinks that Russell Wilson's going to come back in, or thinks that just this is the new version of Justin Fields, because I'm telling you, it's going to pop, and we're going to have that Justin Fields that was a quarterback one for the last couple of years is going to be back at some point.
We know the athleticism's there. We just didn't know that the QB part is there.
Right.
And then, like I don't know if you guys are on Twitter. We also that beautiful passing map. Look like Christmas, guys. Green everywhere. Hutch, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it is, his completion rate is incredibly high right now. The offense is running smoothly. They're not putting up a ton of points yet. I don't think they've had a game of like 30 points yet. They haven't gotten like, a high scoring, like Jagger said, they've been in a lot of games where it's against tough defenses, a lot of running the football on both sides, and a low scoring games. But they're, like Jeff's saying, they're 3-0. Russell Wilson's probably not winning the job back unless Justin Fields has a horrific disaster and poops his pants. But the thing is, you're saying he's going to get better for fantasy. There has to be things that change to get there. He's going to have to run more, which is totally possible. He's an athlete and he can run the football. But one thing I want to talk about as well is that they need to start pushing the ball downfield. Right now, Justin Fields is pushing the ball 20 plus yards downfield on 6.7% of his attempts. That is a really, really low rate. And if he continues to throw, if Arthur Smith continues to drop the offense very safe, very conservative that way, the fantasy upside is not going to be there as much as we wanted to. Because in Chicago, when they were running down there, Fields was able to put the ball downfield with DJ Moore downfield. But in Pittsburgh, it's just not happening as much with Arthur Smith. But I agree here that Justin Fields, if you want to buy low, that is a very solid move to make.
My only question with that stat, and this is why I don't like some of those stats, is like does that include the penalty in there, or does that eliminate that as like a dead play that didn't count? Because like George Pickens is leading it. Yeah, because like George Pickens is like leading in unrealized air yards. Because I hear what you're saying as far as like the downfield thing. Because like to me on the passing end, and this is me not looking at the stats and looking at it from the film perspective and how the game plan is, they are throwing downfield with intention. And that is by Arthur. That's Arthur Smith by design. If you watched him when everyone liked him in Tennessee, that's how he runs an offense. He's going to lull the defense to sleep. Then he's going to take his shots downfield. That's kind of what the Colts want to do. They just. We'll talk about that later. But I think that, like that's going to come. Then the rushing, like we all know what he is as an athlete. So I get it. I guess my point to you then, Hutch, is like, are you buying Fields at this point? Or are you still apprehensive?
I would buy him. Yeah. It's just the thing I say is that it's going to have to change. If we want him to be a star in fantasy, this is going to have to change. And I do think it will change. Like you said, this run game, they've been in a lot of low scoring games. There have been a lot of games of just running the football, pounding the ball, not really able to push the ball downfield a lot because it's not how the game script went. And we know Fields is an athlete. He will run more eventually. It's going to change. It's just not right now. So, and like if you're in a one quarterback league or if you have two great quarterbacks, I would personally just still be benching Fields for now if you have him on your team. But if you don't have him on your team, you want to go trade for him low, I would be willing to do that. Yeah.
Swags, where are you at on the Justin Fields meridian? Are you? Because it's one of those things where like Justin Fields is on the team of the person who loves him the most, which is mine.
Hey, I'm with you guys. I'm optimistic here. This was a spot where people weren't sure, but we have to remember Arthur Smith is still a good play caller. He's just horrible when it comes to personnel. And so unless Arthur Smith starts to roll out Russell Wilson alternating drives with Justin Fields, I think we're going to be somewhat okay here from a fantasy perspective. Like Jagger said, George Pickens leads the NFL in unrealized air yards. I think we've seen a lot of those get called back by penalties. And, I saw Fields make probably the best pass of his career to Pickens that was called back for a penalty, last week. And that just by itself reinvigorated every shred of love I had for Justin Fields coming into the NFL, because I truly believe he can be a great quarterback. And I think this is an offense that he can thrive in. It's an offense that's not going to require him to be the hero very often. It's a run-driven offense where he can kind of, pick a defense apart and pick his spots. And if the offensive line is good enough to protect him and he's, less, more careful with the ball and not holding it too long and getting himself into trouble, which we still do see, a little bit from him, I think this can be a spot where he can flourish. So I'm definitely buying here. I haven't seen any interceptable passes from him this season, which is kind of nuts. I know he had the pick last year, but it went off Cordell Patterson's knee, so I don't count that as a pick, even though it counts in the stat sheets as a pick. But I like what I've seen from Fields this year. I'm ready to push him up the dynasty rankings. He's my QB 17 right now.
Hot dog. I love it. I don't even care that
I like
that's
that.
incredibly bullish. Like keep trade cut right now. They've come up as well. QB 24, which is like for super flex. That's a started QB worthy. I love it. I'm going to push us through these other few because we have the longest show we've had in a long time. I'm not mad. It's been a great conversation. Fowler, Deshaun Watson. Let's put it this way. We've put Justin Fields ahead of him at this point. That's,
Yeah.
remember Justin Fields down
Yeah.
that bad. Like that's where we're at with
Worst
with,
EPA per dropback of the past 20 seasons among Cleveland quarterbacks.
yeah. When I did all my homework on Deshaun Watson, I do like basically a matchup preview article, massive one. Anything I looked at QBs, Deshaun Watson was the worst in. It's doo-doo, folks.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
So
But the
if
thing is-
Jover. We are Jover. We are Jover.
yeah, it's yeah. No.
So
it's
before
not
we
there, but-
move on to someone we actually like, does anyone have anything positive to say?
What I will say, look, I hate Deshaun Watson as much as the next person, but he's been a top 20 quarterback in fantasy in 3 straight weeks, even though he's been that bad. In fantasy football, it's kind of working as a quarterback too, and that's something to at least monitor because we saw flashes of it last year when he was healthy. He can be fantasy relevant. It's there is something there as a quarterback too, and I will just throw that out there. I don't like Deshaun Watson, and I want to hate on him and poop on him as much as the next person, but there's fantasy relevance there right now.
That's a very reasonable outlook because you're right. It's hard out there for a pimp.
And the
AKA
thing
QB.
is, if he continues to play this bet, like he's stuck with the Browns. He's just stuck. The contract, the money, he is stuck. Like there's just no way the Browns are getting out of it. It's not going to happen. So you're probably having Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback for the next couple of years. Like there's probably QB2 value to be had here over the next season or two, unless they make a crazy move and bench him. I just don't see that personally though, because they're paying him so much money.
Jeff, final Deshaun Watson thoughts before we leave. What are you doing with him? Is he just an anchor that is forever chained around your neck if you own him?
I mean, pretty much. I've always had the take on Watson that half your league's not interested, like bottom line, just on his personality alone. And so you're already dealing from a place of discomfort there. And then the other half, do they need a quarterback? I mean, I don't know. And so it's just, he's a rock. And until you just have to pray that he gets something figured out and looks like Houston Deshaun Watson again. Otherwise, there's not much else you can do. But again, you got a lot of bad quarterback play around the league. And I mean, I hesitate to say never, but I do think his mind is in a different place.
No. All right. We'll end on our riser here. We were going to talk about Will Levis, but let's just say it's not good. We're all worried. Panic. Jayden Daniels is we'll talk about him next show or just, Jayden Daniels. We want to end with some positivity. I just keep bumping him up, man. I'm the only thing I'm mad about Jayden Daniels is I had any skeptics in him, like a skepticism in him, and that's mainly Cliff Kingsbury. And I will say that I'm still skeptical of Cliff Kingsbury because Jayden Daniels reminds me of a mixture of Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, where he has Lamar Jackson's skill set, but he's Kyler Murray in the sense that he might keep Cliff Kingsbury around because he's just so good and electric that no matter how kind of turbo mega doo-doo his play calling is, it's not going to matter. That's what it feels like to me. So with that being said, They just ran it up the middle a couple of times, punting. He won't
Oh,
come back.
Sam's asking about. We're
Oh,
out talking.
okay.
Don't
Oh,
worry,
sorry.
no.
Oh, I thought something happened to Jayden Daniels. I was just like, what?
No.
Sorry, guys. We record during Monday Night Football, so like I had to stop everything.
We're all like
If something
glancing. We're all
happened to the
glancing
Prince,
every once in a while.
yeah. If something
Jeff, did
happened to the
Travis
Prince,
get
that
his
was
carries?
Needs one more.
yeah.
Oh.
They just got the ball back. About 12 minutes left or so. 10 minutes. Yeah, 12 minutes.
Oh man.
One
Yeah,
more.
as of right
Nice little draw.
now, the Jags are still absolutely awful, and
They're
apparently
awful.
the
This game is over. Yes.
yeah,
Press
and the
Taylor,
Bengals
Press Taylor's
apparently
getting
suck
left
too.
behind. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the Bengals are really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's the
but
score of the
anyway,
Bengals game right now? I didn't see him.
28-13.
It's 28-13. It's alarming.
Oh,
Like I wrote it. I wrote and everything.
Commanders.
Let's put it this way, guys. If you're in 55 minutes in, you're here. I wrote in an article that if they don't get it right against the Commanders, it's Jover. Like Zach Taylor's gone. You can't do it against anybody if you can't do it against the Commanders. Jayden Daniels leads. I think he's like number 6 in EPA. That doesn't include this game where he's playing well. He threw a touchdown, which is great because he hasn't thrown any up into this point. And let's put it this way. He's still giving 205 yards through the air without a touchdown, without Terry McLaurin, who is just running cardio, but he is giving you 66 yards on the ground and a 97.2 quarterback rating, and that EPA is important. That's one of the stickiest stats to tell you just how good of a quarterback someone is. Let's put it this way. Josh Allen is always towards the top. So
there you go.
how long before we keep him out of the top tier, guys? We'll start with you, Jeff.
Not very. And he's actually throwing the ball downfield. He is playing the Bengals, but that's been my biggest hesitation if we haven't seen the downfield passing attack at all. And adding that element, like, okay, we're there. Let's go.
Hutch, where are you at? I have him QB8. Jeff's QB9. Keep Trade cut his QB9. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do official dynasty rankings like you nerds do, but I will. If I had to, think about the dynasty quarterbacks where I'm at, that's probably around where he deserves to be. I mean, to put it simple, like he is passed for the 26th most yards in the NFL, 0 passing touchdowns, and he's 8th in fantasy points per game right now. Like that's where we're at. It's just he's really really good for fantasy, and once Cliff Kingsbury decides to not be dumb, or once they get rid of Kingsbury, or once Jayden Daniels, continues to develop as a passer, continues to get better, maybe the Commanders add more weapons last year alongside Terry McLaurin, we could see a true next level step up where he's throwing the ball downfield at a really nice rate, getting the ball to good playmakers, and then running the ball over the place and having an elite fantasy ceiling.
Yep. Sam, where are you?
Same thing here. He's my QB8. I mean, he's taking advantage of everything he's being given right now. He's running as much as he possibly can. Does that worry me a little bit? Yeah, he's not the biggest guy. So, one bad hit can change everything. But I do love what I'm seeing from a fantasy perspective. He's really kind of surpassed the fact that Cliff Kingsbury is running a very inefficient offense with bad playmakers, and he's making the most of it. So, to my eyes, I like what I'm seeing from him, and I'm with Jeff. I don't think it's long before he's in that top tier. He shows a lot of downfield passing ability. He had a bomb to Terry McLaurin as we're recording this on Monday Night Football. So I'm happy with what I've seen. So.
Sweet.
Yeah, and also one last thing on Jayden Daniels. Sorry, I'm rooting for him fantasy hardcore right now. I need him to outscore Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase by 9 points, so I can beat my dad in fantasy in my home league this week. Not by 9 points. I'm winning by 9 points. I have Jayden Daniels and he has Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I think that might be happening right now. I'm not sure.
Hot dog,
but yeah,
it's close. It's close.
We love Andy, but I'm Team Hutch right
Andy.
now. You need to get that W. Well, that'll end this episode, folks. As always, I am the busiest geek online. I'm Jagger May, and then with me is our Dynasty captain, Jeff Bell. That's Hutch. That's Sam Wagman. They'll be with us the rest of the week here. Always give us a like. Always give us a subscribe. And give us those reviews over on the audio versions. I love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.